welcome to the first of this year's EuroVersy Debates, which this time we are doing on Zoom. We have a panel or a jury, you could say, of Eurovision fans from, I suppose, almost across Europe for today, who are going to be talking about Ireland's prospects or future prospects in the Eurovision Song Contests, how they've been doing, how they did this year, and how they can rebuild for the future. But before we talk about that, let's talk about what's just gone on in Liverpool. How is everyone coping with what's just gone by? Is anyone? I live in Liverpool, and the posters are all still up, and the big giant heart things are slowly disintegrating, and I've got big wooden holes in them. But yeah, how's everyone? How did everyone find Liverpool?
Tiring. Wouldn't change it for the world, but I came back. I was like, oh, I'm not 18 anymore, am I? Oh dear.
Were you there all week, Elliot?
No, so I went the weekend before it all started, actually, and I saw Meg, and she was my lovely little tour guide around Liverpool, so I actually knew where I was going when I went for weeks. And then I went on the first weekend, came back to watch the semi-finals at home, and then came back for the Friday and Saturday. So yeah, I was slowly just ramping up week by week, but still I think I was there 4 or 5 days and I was still knackered just because there was just so much to do and so much energy, but wouldn't have changed it for the world.
What about anyone else? Did we all come to Liverpool or?
No.
No,
sadly not.
Sorry, but you saw it.
I must add that, I mean, Finland was the place to be. If you weren't in Liverpool this year, Finland was the place to be. Hello from Helsinki. I can't remember Finland going this mad about Eurovision ever, not even when we won it, and that was crazy. That was crazy back then, but
this was
crazy on a new level.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like in Finland, if it had arms, they would put a green set of sleeves on it. It was pretty mad.
Apparently, if you wanted anything green in Finland, it was very, very hard to come by during the Eurovision week, especially if you wanted to color food or something, or if you wanted green fabric. Forget it. You had to go to Estonia to get it.
Have they started making that Korea statue yet? Because I've heard that it's supposed to be honouring him or something. I think
as soon as we have enough green material again, then probably.
Once it's been imported from Estonia, yeah.
And Meg, you're a fellow Liverpoolian. How did you find the week living in the Eurovision city?
It was wild, wasn't it? I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Just being at home and seeing Eurovision fans that off Twitter from all over the world wandering around, like sitting having a coffee, and Aussie Vision walk past. It's just the strangest thing. Yeah, like Elliot said, wouldn't have changed it for the world, but I am still recovering. I'm shattered.
I was knackered because I finished work on the Thursday before the week of the contest and immediately went to the Lush Lounge to see George's entry. And then basically from then on, just lived on a diet of sort of whiskey and hot dogs until sort of Sunday morning. And I ended up taking the day off work. I was just really run down by the whole thing. What were people's highlights of the week then? What was their sort of favourite experiences of being in Liverpool?
I think mine was probably on the Monday, and I think there was a group of us listening to the Ukrainian artists. So I think I got there when Go A were on, and I just remember towards the end they were doing Shum, and we ended up doing this. It wanted us to make a circle, like a magic circle kind of thing, and then everyone was quite hesitant to begin with, and then like 3 people joined hands, then like more people and more people and more people had joined hands, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then that was just so wonderful. That was probably one of my highlights of the week. It was just so nice. Everyone just came together and just like danced in circles and everything, and you're chatting to people, and that was really, really cool. It was so lovely.
Oh, excellent. And Faith, what was you came to Liverpool, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I'd say mine was seeing semi-final 1 live. I managed to get a ticket for that, and I was standing and I was very, very close to the front. It was just insane. Like it was, you doesn't feel real when you're in there, because I actually saw the rehearsal that earlier in the afternoon, and it just felt like another rehearsal. It was weird. It was just such a weird feeling knowing this is broadcast to millions and millions of people worldwide. And just I think another highlight is just walking into the arena for the first time is just immense. It was just so beautiful, like all the colors, and knowing that you're one of a few very lucky people out of over 100 million people that is actually seeing it live. It was insane. And also knowing that you are going to see a Eurovision winner, like on the stage, you're going to see a Eurovision winning performance. It was just very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Will, what about you? What was your highlight of the week?
Well, I started to go over to Liverpool in April time because I still had to, try and, convince myself this was really happening, because I simply, couldn't believe that it was. And so I went over and I started to see the heart logo appearing everywhere. And then I just kind of thought, this is really going to happen, isn't it? And I went over to the arena early on. So this was in April, and the trucks were just arriving, the NEP trucks that do the broadcast, and so it was becoming very real. And then I went over again a couple more times, and a bit more was happening, and a bit more was happening. So then I was lucky enough to have tickets for Thursday's afternoon rehearsal and for Friday night. And when I went in on Thursday afternoon, I was on my own, and when I went in, I just could not believe that I was back at Eurovision, because I hadn't been since 2014. And similar to Fate, the lights, when you went in and the yellow, orange, blue colors were just pulsating, I just was so happy, because it felt like going to church. I'm not a church goer, but I felt like I was back in church when I went into the venue, because obviously that's a very special place. It only exists when they build Eurovision. And so that's how it was for me. And yeah, getting in to be there like that, even though I knew it wasn't going to be on TV live that time, but that was just fantastic. And I was sat beside a volunteer, and she was so lovely. And I chatted to her the whole time, and she was like, "You're the best person I could have possibly been sat beside," because I was telling her everything about the show, and she had no idea. So it was lovely.
And Chris, you watched it in the cinema, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So because
how was that?
Yeah, well, my fiance is a teacher, and she also loves Eurovision. So going up north from where we live near London, not an option. Sadly, we didn't get tickets for the one show we could have made. So we decided to go to the cinema showing of it. And thankfully, because I'm not much of a people person, it was nice and quiet. There was only a few other people there. That was good. But what I will say is, holy heck, seeing that on a massive screen in cinema audio quality was amazing. Just seeing some of them, you almost felt like you were there in a way. You did feel a bit sick at Poland's performance with that fisheye lens.
I think for me, it was just some of the more surreal moments, like Daddy Freya just giving out ice cream in the middle of Williamson Square. And I got to go in Kari's sauna, which was
great for fans of geography teachers.
I've got I've got some stories, but it's not for right now. Right. So from that positivity, let's talk about Ireland. Ireland obviously are the 7-time winners of the Eurovision Song Contest, but in truth, they haven't won the contest in over 25 years, and they haven't qualified for the contest since 2018. And once again, Wild Youth stepped up in semi-final 1 and were unable to qualify. Let's start by talking about Wild Youth then. Let's talk about what happened on the night. What were people's feelings about Wild Youth and how they performed in the semi-final?
I'll put it this way. I'm surprised they got points, because when I watched that performance, I was just like, who is this for? Connor, as lovely as he is, and I watched it back this afternoon, it kind of felt like he gave up before he started. When you watch it back, and I've always said, if you're not believing in the song, how can you convince anyone else? And that's the thing, like, it all looked the part, but he kind of looked checked out. And also, what the hell was he wearing? Sorry, that's ingrained in my head, that gold catsuit, and I will never get rid of it.
I will just say, because I think I have an interesting perspective, because he was literally like a few feet in front of me. A lot of people were saying towards the end it looked like he gave up, and I didn't see anyone else talking about this, but from my perspective it looked like he was having issues with his in-ear, because I don't think they zoomed in on him. I think they kind of zoomed out at that point, but you could see him like tapping his ear and looking really worried. So I think towards the end he maybe couldn't hear himself, because I know there apparently were sound issues throughout the whole contest. They didn't admit it, but I think a lot of people could tell there were some sound issues. But I do think that, yeah, I think he had an issue, but it was too late to do anything about it. And that's why he looked a bit worried and not happy. I remember I was like, oh my God, are they going to stop the show? Because you could tell he was looking up at the sound box, like to try and get someone's attention. But because it was like 20 seconds away from the end of the song, I think they just continued with it.
To be fair, he wasn't singing off key.
No. And they've done it in the jury shows before. Like, if there's an issue, you can request to go again. They just put you on at the end of the show. Because I know Estonia in the past has requested it, but got denied, and so did Norway. But I remember in 2021, Malta and Goa performed again because they both had in-ear issues in the jury final. So if it was such an issue, they could have challenged it, and they then could have probably worked in their favour and closed the show instead of going in the middle.
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that, Faith, because I was in the jury, or what would have been the jury rehearsal the day before, and they got the guys out on stage and then did the postcard, and then suddenly stopped for a bit, and Alicia had to sort of fill time for a bit, and they showed a sort of spare VT, and it was because they were having issues, and you could see Connor just pacing the top of those stairs like it was. He looked, the poor guy, he looked stressed to hell, like by the whole thing. So yeah, that may well be that he'd had issues, but and what about
but there is a thing there. I don't doubt that he had sound issues, but I sat through the Irish national final because I had nothing else to do, and that felt like a long final. That felt like a long event, never ended. And the thing is that he did one thing that he did also in Liverpool, and that is that he doesn't sing the high notes. He doesn't do the hard work. He sort of drops it. He moves away from the microphone, doesn't even pretend to sing the note that is supposed to sell the song. So that's what I find extremely lazy. Like, why do you go there with a song that you're not able to perform? It feels a bit like you're really sort of pulling the leg of the audience. And I think the audience, whether they understand it or not, they feel that something is off. They won't gravitate to a performer who doesn't actually do the job. That's a very strong feeling I have about it.
Yeah. One thing with Wild Youth is Connor is not the lead singer. They have 3 singers who kind of take turns, and they have one of the guys who plays guitar does a lot of like their sort of funkier songs that are more kind of like disco-y and kind of not quite falsetto, but getting into that territory. And he is their higher pitched vocalist, whereas Connor does a more gravelly vocals. I think the thing is, they weren't kind of making it clear that he was singing some of it and the other guys were taking the lead on the rest of the song. It wasn't clear as a viewer. It just looked like he was lip syncing.
And let's talk about the song itself. I mean, was it a good song, or I think people try to sort of spin it as this is anthemic, and if they can do it right on the night, it'll be an anthem. We'll all be clapping along, and jobs are good. And is that the impression we got, or was it just not the right song for Ireland?
I think if this was 2019 and this was the song that was following up from Together, then you might feel differently. But looking at it after, Eurovision history of 21 and 22, to try this song and this sound in 23 from a band who definitely have better than this song, I've heard their other stuff, was definitely, I think, the mistake. Because anthems can work at Eurovision, but Ireland are, on a very, slippery slope. And what they need is something a lot more authentic and traditional, and but just something that isn't, trying to be U2 Light or whatever, this song was trying to do. So I don't think We Are One worked for this year. A different year might have been great, but no, things of Eurovision have changed too much to have that as your entry, especially coming from Ireland.
I think also the issue, and it's a point which Will said, it's a complete disconnect from their discography as Wild Youth. And I think that's where, obviously, when the names came out and everything, you saw the name Jorgulf Ellison on there, and I'm like, right, there's a Swedish producer on this. Let's have a listen. And it did sound like a very by numbers anthemic song to almost, like Tobias said, to fool the audience. It felt like this is what Eurovision is, this is what everyone gravitates to, like it's a unity song, blah, blah, blah. But that's what it was issue. It was just too middle of the road in every single dynamic. It felt like, oh, we need someone from Sweden because that Sweden know how to do Eurovision. Whereas if they just did what they normally do, they would have done better and probably scraped 10th, because their other back catalogue is, say, it's a bit funky, it's good, it's really catchy. Whereas this tried to be, but in doing so, it fell into that mid-tempo range of just meh. And I think that's the issue. They tried to be too clever and it kind of backfired.
I think Brooke Scullion, she said this in an interview, because even she admitted that she didn't think her song was very good, or it was not enough for Eurovision. And I think it was her that said the key for doing well at Eurovision is authenticity. And when I saw the afternoon rehearsal, I was actually sat next to a woman who she loves Eurovision, but she purposely didn't listen to any of the songs because she wanted to be surprised. And she actually said that Ireland was a favorite song because she just thought it was like quite nice. And I don't know what her previous favorites were. She also liked Israel, but she said she really liked Ireland. So I think it does cater to that's, I would say she was maybe like late 30s. I don't want to be rude, but
Right.
it does kind of cater to that sort of age range, but it's just not
Really?
no, but like as in people who are like very casual watchers.
Keep going.
Who, I don't know, she was young, I think she was younger, but I'm trying to be nice. Like she was older than like me. Like,
it's a
that's what
blanket
I'm
song.
trying
It caters to what they think the general demographic is, whereas especially in the semi-final,
that's
it's
what
a
I meant.
broader spectrum.
I wasn't calling her old. I meant she was older than me.
I think as well, in terms of the audience in the hall went went wild for it when I was there, and the reception they got was fantastic. And I think we ended up sort of passing some guys, I think, leaving the arena at the end, and they sort of were quite gutted that didn't qualify. So I think the audience in the hall was very Irish, Liverpudlian as well, with lots of people with different Irish roots as well. So they did get a great reception, which was great.
Do you think that the audience going wild for them was because there was a lot of Euro fans who kind of felt some sympathy towards them, knowing the things that they've gone through, and how bad of an experience they've had? I know I would have cheered louder than ever for them.
I was going to come on to that, because I think from the second they won, everyone was saying, "Why didn't we pick Midnight Summer Night or whatever?" And it's a bit like San Marino. The minute they won, they've had 8 weeks of everyone's going, "We don't really want you here, to be honest." And it just, I'd give up by that point as well if I'd been picked. It sounds as though they had a really rough ride, and then obviously got into a fight with the wizard author along the way. So it just sounds, what do we think about that sort of experience of they just seem to be just picked on the minute they got chosen?
I have a very strong opinion on that. I have been, you talked about ages before. My first Eurovision where I went to live was the last Eurovision that Ireland won. You do the maths, you don't have enough fingers for that, but one thing that was happening in the fandom back then, when the internet was, literally new, to what happens now, is that there is a very large section of the fandom who takes the right to be very rude about things. It's fine not to like stuff. It's fine to think that an entry is lazy or badly written or badly performed, but there are ways to be vocal about this. I mean, to constantly, you mentioned San Marino. I felt extremely bad for San Marino at the same time as I thought that their entry was completely, not a chance. Like this chance of a snowball in hell. And I felt the same for Ireland, but then the problem with Ireland is that none of the songs in the Irish final would have qualified for the final, because they had 5 songs that were just completely substandard. And this is such a fundamental problem with the Irish national final, and that is what has to be dealt with. And then I would just feel sorry for anyone that would get sent off, because they wouldn't stand a chance anyway.
And that's sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like I said, no one deserves hate. I think we can all agree on that. Like, we all have disagreements, but no one deserves actual abuse. And as long as the criticism is constructive, I think that's the thing. But that's the beauty of social media, and the downsides. Like, everyone has an opinion and everyone has the right to voice it. There are, as I said, there are ways about it. Was it my pick of a song? No, but they won. It was Ireland's choice. Ireland were happy to send them because they won the televote. It's their song, and they were very proud of them. So, but like I said, it is hard when you see they get constant abuse, for lack of a better word, and then they start speaking out about it, because then you think, from a mental perspective, how are they coping with this one? I don't think people realize that it is a heavy thing mentally. So yeah, I just hope they're okay now and living their best life.
If I was in their shoes, I would have gone full heel turn and just lent into the hate.
Well, they didn't react well to them not qualifying, didn't they? They were reposting. I can't remember her name. There's quite a famous Irish singer. She posted an Instagram story saying how, I just don't know what we have to do to get through, kind of like suggesting that it's more than the song and that it's a political thing. And so they were kind of leaning into that they should have qualified, but they didn't because of all these external reasons, when in reality, and what I was meant to say before, is that I think Wild Youth were a kind of small fish in a big pond. And because a lot of the kind of press junkets they were doing, you could tell in a lot of them, and I don't know if they intended to look like this, but they looked miserable in a lot of them. I feel like maybe they didn't quite know how big it is and how big of a commitment this is. And I think the hate added on to that, as well as like, we have to be doing this for months and months and months. Like, it's not just 2 weeks you take out of a year, it's a good at least 3-month process, and they have to stick with this song and they can't change it, and they're getting all this hate. And I think they kind of gave up before it started, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
sorry, go on.
you go ahead.
No, go on. I was sitting right behind the green room during the first semi-final, and like I think we said earlier, we thought Wild Youth, particularly Connor anyway, had kind of checked out during the performance. Sitting behind the green room, once that final country had been called in the qualifiers, he got up and he left straight away. He gave everyone a hug, and then he was gone before the credits even rolled. And I think, I wonder how much pressure and hate and toxicity in the fandom had added to that feeling of just not really feeling like they're enjoying it anymore. And I think it's something that we desperately need to look inward on ourselves as a fandom, because this should be something that people enjoy. No matter the result, no matter what happens, they should come into it and feel that we've got a supportive community that will continue to listen to the music afterwards and lift these artists up. That should be something that's fun at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I saw them in the Cavern the week before the contest. The Busker played, and then Wild Youth came, and they were just in a packed out Cavern. They were incredibly well received, but by then it's sort of too little, too late. And I've got a sort of vaguely drunken memory of sort of saying well done to Connor, and the guy just looked like he checked out. Like he just I felt really bad for him.
There's in one of my favorite Eurovision podcasts, Eurovision Division, Mira and Jeroen mentioned when they went to the pre-party in the Netherlands, how Mira shouted out to Connor after the concert, Sean passing by. She's like, I can't remember what she said to him, but she said something like, I love your song. And he replied by going, cha, cha, cha. Like, he wasn't even promoting his own bloody song.
Let's bring in Ewan, who's just joined us now. Good evening, Ewan. you look as though you're about to give us the vote to the Edinburgh jury.
I'm not. Good evening from Glasgow.
Oh, sorry.
Everybody important in Eurovision is in Glasgow. It should be us. Yeah, I've come in slightly late because I was out watering the garden because it's been sunny in Edinburgh. So I don't know exactly which points have been covered and which points haven't. So let me just bring in two things that I think that may or may not have been covered, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think the first thing is to talk about the Irish delegation. I always get the feeling that their team management is wrong. And in that sense, I mean, the delegation as a whole, if you were to treat it as a sporting event, they've got a manager who is some very, very poor, weak football team, insert your favorite sports team here. And they're up against a very, very big one. So Preston North End in 1937. And they've convinced the little tiny non-league club that they're going to win the Champions League at the first go. And it's like, we're good at this. We've got 7. We know what we're doing. You've got the best song in the world. Just go out there and sing it and they will all love you and they will win. And I just think that a lot of this issue, my feeling, because I don't know anything, my feeling is that the man management, to use it, the person management, is just not there in the team. They don't know how to handle the post-selection, the previews, the rehearsals, and the run-up. We've certainly seen the exploding cake meme. And I think this is also, as a slight diversion, I think this is one of the reasons where Finland kind of fell down a bit, because they've not been in the running to win this for 15 odd years. So they were in uncharted territory. They kept on pushing to get the public vote, but they didn't think to reassure everybody that they had a venue for next year that might have helped their jury vote a little bit more. Sweden, on the other hand, they're past masters at this. They are the Man City. See, I do know football teams. They are the Man City that absolutely know the running. It was perfectly drilled. They didn't put a foot wrong. It was clinical. Everybody went, it must have been the juries were in on it and everybody, it's massive conspiracy. No, it's just that Sweden knew the rule book and knew how to play the game and played it exceptionally well. Ireland, I feel, just don't have any experience or depth of knowledge at the Modern Song Contest of a winning nature.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And we talked a little bit, I think it was Faith touched on it before, about the politics of Ireland. And now, I'm not sure there is any
what politics.
Well, exactly.
Exactly.
Faith, I wasn't here for that, but so you get to do it again. And
I was just saying that they were Wild Youth, after they didn't qualify. There was a famous singer in Ireland who went onto Instagram on her story and was very angrily saying how they just don't know what to do to get through. Like, no matter what we do, we can't get through. And she was suggesting it was an external reason, like people don't like to vote for Ireland. And they reposted that, like they were suggesting that the odds were against them from the start. They were kind of ignoring the fact that it was the song, which it was. You know, people like Ireland and people will vote for Ireland, but it's just they haven't sent anything of quality recently. Well, I like Brooke Scullion, and it was a shame she didn't get through, but
This is so funny because this is exactly the thing that the UK has been doing. And we've all been laughing at the UK for doing this, including Ireland. So it's so sad to see someone else doing that exact thing. Oh, we send our 10th hopeless entry in a row. Nobody's voting for it. It must be political. It's like, yeah, or your entries are just bad.
Yeah, I mean, at least, yeah, Tobias, completely agree. And Faith, you've nailed the analysis there as well. The one thing I think I will add to that, and it's not mine, it's Roy Delaney's. I may have said it in the last 12 years, but Roy's been doing this game longer than me and Tobias put together. And he said it didn't pass the NAN vote. NANs don't know countries or politics. They just look at the telly on the night and just go, oh, I like them. Oh, I don't like them. And Wild Youth did not pass the NAN vote at Eurovision. They looked at it and went, no. I mean, they weren't the only rock band. They were the only band to perform in monochrome, which is great if you're watching on a black and white television, but everybody else used different colors on their staging. I presume that we've mentioned the costume, and if we haven't, I'm not going to go there.
We've touched on it.
I don't want to touch on it, so whoever does, feel free. But again, that comes from a delegation who should be able to clinically look at a monitor and go, that's wrong. I think I mean, a lot of us have been in this game a long time. A lot of us have been here just a couple of years, but we can all look at a screen and just instinctively feel that's right or that's wrong. We might not have the language to describe it. We might not be able to go, oh, you know what, Loren's using the wrong focus depth on the lens. If they switch that out another f-stop and just widen up the iris, we'll get a much better shot of the toaster machine. But we can all go, oh, that doesn't look quite right in rehearsal 2. And then at dress 1, we can go, oh, that does look right.
And then we can say it's a BBC conspiracy.
We could all see it looking at Ireland. We just go, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And the Irish delegation should have spotted that months ago in their run.
So I don't know Wild Youth all that well in terms of pre-Eurovision. I mean, were big spangly jumpsuits part of their thing, or was this?
Yes and no.
Right.
They're not afraid to show who they are. Basically, they're very much, this is our brand, and if you don't like it, that's fine. Their thing, and it comes back to say the man management and everything about, and Ewan's point about saying convincing them that they can win from a starting point. They're a big band in Ireland. They've been rumoured to go for at least the last 5 years. Connor said back in 2020, let me write Ireland's Eurovision song. And I think they've just kept that mindset with them. It's like, yeah, but Ireland want you. Like, they picked you. Like, you're a big band. Look at your success in Ireland. The issue is, it doesn't matter your home success in Eurovision. You've got to convince everyone else around you. And I think, and that's where the UK fell short as well in the past. Like, we so get involved in our own little bubble, we forget, no, everyone's got to vote for us. We can't vote for ourselves. And Ewan's right, like, you know, it doesn't matter who sends what or what country it's from. If a song is good, people will vote for it. That's the baseline of it. If a song is good, people will pick up the phone and vote. Like, Carlia, did anyone understand what you were singing? I didn't. Did I love it and pick up the phone? Yes, because it was fun on stage. And I think that's the point.
You look at them going, they're not ballroom dancers. They're ballroom dancers who've learned cha-cha-cha. There's a slight difference.
Their technique wasn't bad.
I think one thing I like here is Wild Youth were pitched as a really big band. Wild Youth have got one chart entry in the Irish Top 100, and it's We Are One, and it's number 93. So we're almost in a situation of Joe and Jake. If the Irish public will not buy the song, why should we vote for it? We had the same, as I said there, with Joe and Jake, with a couple of our entries over previous years. Last 2 years, that's been very different for the UK. Sam Ryder charted. May charted well before going to the song contest with a good song. It might not have been a good competitive song, but it was a good song. And when I hear the word politics, this is what I mean. It's the politics of the music industry. It's the politics of the talent agencies. That's who you need to convince that it's right. And then you will get an act, and then you will get support. The BBC had TAP come to them, and TAP saying, we believe in this product. And then for some reason, the BBC management decided to open the purse strings a little bit with the BBC delegation after James Newman. And they got a respect from the music industry. They got a bit of give from the media, and they got a little bit more budget to do some spend. And all of a sudden, politically, it feels okay to do Eurovision. And with May, it was like, oh, Sam's come second. Politically, it's better to do Eurovision. And while May did not have a stellar result this year, she got top 10. That is incredibly important for next year. 4 Eurovision songs in the top 10 makes Eurovision politically acceptable in music circles. Not for your top tier or your second tier bands, but for you coming in, they've had a single, a little bit more than May. I think that is where it wins. Ireland need to find that overall confidence and budget.
So, Ewan, one of the things I said before you arrived was I made a note of what everyone wrote down on the little survey that we did.
Oh dear,
so
what did I?
Yeah. So what you said, sort of paraphrasing, was that the Irish music industry need confidence in the project. My question to you, or to anyone, is how do you get the Irish music industry to become confident in what they're doing, or to convince them to take part? Anyone can answer that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said quite a bit coming on, so I'm happy to take it, but I'll go after everybody else.
Okay.
I will
It's
just
the
say,
exposure.
yeah, I have another interesting perspective because I know someone who was on. So obviously, it was shortlisted to 6 who performed at Eurosong, but there was an even bigger, I guess, a long list of about, I think it was like 50, 60 countries, and they got a jury. One of my friends was on this jury. I'm not going to say who because I don't want them to get in trouble for telling me. But there was quite a few people that were selected for this jury because they are with a press team. And so they reviewed about 20 songs, and they told me the quality was not good. Out of the 20 songs they heard, there were probably only 2 or 3. I think one of them was Connolly's. There was only 2 or 3 they liked. Because again, I won't say who. There was a popular entry or group that entered, and people were really surprised they weren't shortlisted because they were offering something different. And my friend actually listened to that as part of the jury, and they said it was not good in their opinion.
Is that a folk metal band?
Maybe. But in their opinion, they said, because people were really shocked, like, this is what we need, but they said that it was not a good, like, they, and you know, like they are Eurovision, we have similar tastes, and I think they have a taste reflective of a lot of us, and they said it wasn't very good. Not to be, I mean, maybe others thought differently, but they didn't get shortlisted. And basically the shortlist itself wasn't good. The list of songs to choose from wasn't good to begin with. I think it's a matter of, I think even like approaching artists, I know other countries do this, and maybe Ireland already do this, approaching already established artists in Ireland and saying, hey, do you want to take part, and we can maybe help offer you, you know, management to help you curate a song, rather than opening it to the whole public and everyone trying to throw their shoe in, and then what you get is just a long list of meh, and it's hard to weed out what actually has potential.
I'm not surprised that it's a poison chalice, because I think people have just seen Eurovision in Ireland as something that's become less and less important. The more the results are bad, the more it sticks and it hurts. The next morning on all of the talk radio shows, it's about that Eurovision is a disgrace. Did you see what was up there? It was a holy joke, and our money is being wasted on that. Get it out of there now. And this is what is happening in Ireland, and it's building this culture against the contest, because what you've got going up there is someone who will chance it, but they're not sure and they're not confident in it. And then what you get is then a negative result, and it just is in this cycle where it's now always this negative thing the next day, and it's a waste of money. The Eurovision is a holy joke. We don't need it, and we should pull out. And that is this big problem that is happening there. It's disconnected completely. I was in Ireland on the Tuesday night when Ireland didn't qualify, and my family were, you know, making up all these kind of excuses and political reasons, and I was just there biting my tongue going, you have no idea.
When you say this political reason keeps coming up, what other politics that Irish are blaming it on? Because for me, as someone over in the UK, Ireland's politics is rice pudding. It's bland. There's nothing offensive about politics in Ireland to me that I'm aware of, at least.
I think it's more around neighbour voting than political. So they're talking about, we have no chance. UK couldn't vote on the Tuesday night, and so every other neighbour of every other nation voted for them. We didn't have the votes then, especially when it was televote. And again, you can't reason with it, because, you know, we know as fans what goes on, how it works, and the way in which they're ranked. But people don't know that. They just see it as a loss, and it's something they're not happy about, because the glory days and those 7 wins and all that is all they've got to hang on to. And I mean, they're so long ago now. There wasn't even widescreen TV back then.
But that's the really interesting
past,
thing, isn't it? But that's the really interesting thing, isn't it, Will, is that I saw a few chat shows as well, and the immediate reaction was, we need to bring the National Song Contest back. I mean, the National Song Contest hasn't existed for 35 years, at least.
It existed into the 90s, but it hasn't been around since then. And I think that the year Dustin was there, they might have called it something along the lines of Eurosong as well. But no, it hasn't existed in a long time. And again, that doesn't work unless you have the artists who want to do it, the songs that are strong enough. So you're just right back to square one. I mean, and as I say, it does damage the Eurovision brand in Ireland when it becomes this thing that we don't want to lose in one more time.
It seems as though, sorry.
So one thing I want to bring in here is it's about making Eurovision safe. I find myself assaulted by a cat. Being fed, go away. Connolly is a very good. I have a very simple question for Connolly. Does she have a career now? And if the answer is no, then that's one of the root problems with your national final. You need to have a national final or selection system in any country where finishing second, finishing fifth, or finishing last is seen as an achievement. Now, Melody Festival has this. UMK, and I'd love to hear Tobias's thoughts, is UMK has managed that over the last year or two, I feel, where it's like being on the show, even if you end up being last, is still, that was a win. That was good. Connolly doesn't have a career. If Connolly had went to Liverpool with the same backing from the delegation, obviously it would be a different song, but I get the feeling that her career would now be over. So when you ask, well, who's going to go in for this long list? Who's going to submit a song? It's not going to be anybody who's got a sniffling of a career, because any management is going, no, you spend 6 months having to follow RTE who don't know what they're doing. And at the end of it, you don't have a career. So if I had to say anything to any delegation, it is you have to make sure that whatever happens to the artists, you have a duty of care. You know, Mae Muller, I want to see Mae Muller do a good number of the summer concerts in the UK that are under the BBC's control, because people go, oh, I enter Eurovision, but I also get to do Glastonbury or Download or Radio 1's Big Day in the Park where Royal Blood go, oh, nobody likes it. It's about insulating it. And I think the first step there is you take away the chance of losing in a national final. Ireland has to go to an internal selection, in my opinion. Ireland has to hand all creative control to the management of the artist. All RTE should be doing is the TV broadcast. They should split those roles up. And we've seen the Twitters from Ryan O'Shaughnessy that he became his own creative director. He brought in his own ideas because he knew the vision of the song. And he got to the final because at that point you had belief, you had insulation, you had somebody who had passion in the project, and the rest of the team went off and did the TV show. They can then get institutional knowledge from 2-3 years of that and then bring back Eurosong. Presumably once Patrick Keelty's rejigged the Late Late Show into something that people under 75 would like to watch. But Tobias, I'm wondering if, because UMK 5 or 6 years ago was in a really poor place.
That was horrible. Yeah, but UMK used to be one of the weakest national finals in the terms of, you know, maybe not song-wise, maybe not artistically, but it didn't do you any good to take part, because if you came second, nobody would have an interest in you. Your only chance was winning, going to Eurovision and getting a good result there. And as you all remember, Finland didn't back in the day, because nobody...
Didn't they send another camel toe, Tobias?
Yeah, Ireland stole that from us this year, didn't they? Well, anyway, there is this... what was I going to say? The thing is that I also thought that Finland would have to go internal to get this sorted out, because for so many years, nobody who was anyone in Finland would bother with it because it wouldn't bring you any good. And then they had a change of how the songs were shortlisted, and it's still sort of it's a little bit vague. It's a little bit of an open competition, but the participants have been handpicked by the manager of the most popular radio station within the Wiley network, who knows everyone, who knows what strings to pull, who knows who's up and coming, who's interesting, who has something to offer, who has something to gain from the exposure. And this year we had 7 songs in the running, 6 of which became major hits in Finland. I mean, huge hits. Kuuma, that ended in 5th place, I think, with Yli Voimainen, is like apart from Käärijä, I mean, they didn't end second in the national final. They are a huge act in Finland now. They've been #1 on the album chart for months. The UMK exposure, I never, like 5 years ago, I would never have thought that this would happen. So I think that any country that has problems with their national finals should actually call up YLE right now and ask, can we come over? Can we have a little meeting? How did you do this? How did you make this happen in this short time? Because we didn't see it coming. One day, the national final was just good and people started watching it and caring and listening to the songs afterwards. And I mean, that is what you need, basically.
I just want to move on to some comments from the forums, particularly things Will and Jamie said. So Will, you called for a more authentic act to represent Ireland, and Jamie, you said that perhaps the Irish should consider sending a Gaelic or a song in Irish, along the lines of what TV4 have done for the Junior Eurovision. Ireland haven't sent a song sung in Irish. They've done it once about 50 years ago. Again, I'm sort of asking out loud really, is that the more traditional song? Is that the way for Ireland to go? Because traditionally they never really, I wouldn't say that Linda Martin or Niamh Kavanagh won with traditionally Irish songs. They won with sort of middle of the road love songs. But Will or Jay, what do you think?
I guess it depends on what you class as Irish traditional. When I say authentic, I mean someone who has star quality and the song that they're singing is catchy, but it stands out from everything else. And I mean, this is what every other country wants as well. But Ireland isn't getting that, and it's not clicking in on what that should be. And they're trying formulaically to create Eurovision songs. And unfortunately, what Eurovision needs is something completely different now. And that's the part they just are not getting. So each and every year, they're sending, and I loved Leslie Roy, but what she was trying and everything was trying to create a perfect Eurovision song, and I don't think that is the way to do it. In terms of Irish, I would say that there would be no problem with it being sung in Irish, but similarly they could have sung any of the songs in Irish in the past, but if it was the right song and you just got it and you felt it right with it, then it wouldn't even matter. Look at this year's Slovenian or whichever, Serbian. It doesn't have to be in English. They used to always, get great places because they could sing in English when everybody else couldn't. But when that went away, what have you got left?
Yeah, I kind of think with the whole, especially Junior Eurovision particularly, because they came fourth in the contest last year. And I kind of wonder if RSC could maybe learn a bit from TG4 a little bit in terms of their approach, because I think most of the selection was done sort of backstage, and I think it was like an internal selection, I think, but it was televised kind of thing. So I mean, they could send something in Gaelic. I mean, why not? I mean, Ireland's got nothing to lose, really, to be fair. Or you just send Jedward again. I mean, it's an option.
All for that.
Yeah, so I kind of think the internal selection is definitely the way forward. I think I kind of think, but again, I think there's that sort of the budgets, there's the spending, and we kind of seen that also with Romania as well. I mean, spending just short of 400,000 euros on a participation fee and everything else that comes with it. I think a lot of the smaller broadcasters might struggle in funding participation, particularly in the situation we're in now with inflation, cost of living, all that kind of thing. So I guess that is a challenge, and sourcing that budget, like the BBC have kind of done with TAP, I guess. Yeah. So maybe spend it in Gaelic, but I think maybe look at TG4 probably as a sort of way forward.
The thing is, it doesn't have to cost the world, though, does it? I mean, you look at what Portugal did this year. It was literally just a few dancers and a really good song and personality to tell it. It doesn't have to be a huge, big budget, Leslie Royal style, bringing all the props out kind of thing. It just has to. I mean, I know it's such a vague thing to say. It just has to be good and authentic and feel like a song the artist believes in.
It just
that's
has to
missing.
be a good song.
Yeah.
Meg, I'd like to cut in there because I think what you all said makes a ton of sense, but also with Finland in mind, I would like to throw in that on some level, you need to tell yourself and believe that you don't really care all that much what other people think of your entry. You have to find the thing you like yourself. You need to find the thing that represents us. This is why people went crazy about Kääriä in Finland, because this is us. This is the thing we do. This is actually representative of us. And I think Ireland would have to sit down and take a hard, long think about what is this thing? What is this thing that we like? What would we like to showcase? And then do it. Many times it won't work, but then once in a while it will work. And it's much more likely that that will work than if you try to please everyone. If you try to find the song that everyone will like at least a bit, then nobody will really like it.
Jamie, one thing that you mentioned about Jedward on Ireland's biggest peanut butter giveaway show, because they were there to be jurors essentially, and they were on the money when they were there, because they were talking about things not feeling authentic. They said it to the artist's face, this song is not authentic. And I mean, it was ballsy and brave of them to do so. So basically say on national TV, your song's not good enough, and here's why.
I mean, telling Johnny Rotten, we're sorry your wife's ill, but your song's not very good.
He needed to be told. He needed to be told.
Just that's what it takes for a delegation to hear the truth. If that's what delegation needs to hear, and John and Edward are two really sharp businessmen. You don't survive in the industry this long just on the strength of singing the theme to Sharknado 3, which is fabulous, by the way. Go look it up and listen to it on YouTube. That's what Ireland needs. You know, it says, oh, we'll send a Gaelic song. That's blaming the song. Oh, we just need to find a better artist in the selection process. That's blaming the artist. You blame the process. There's an issue with the process. And the process is you don't have somebody like Jedward going, that's not authentic. That doesn't work. Jedward know their audience incredibly well. And it's amazing that they have wonderful recall of fans. They can recall fans' names so they've met them 6, 9 months, a year later. But they know the music industry, they know how to sell to their fans, and they've got a pretty good idea on modern music that's aimed towards a younger generation. And that's, you know, Ireland is still living in the past. It's still 7 victories. It's still, oh, we've got a lovely girl with a ballad. She's standing on a box underneath us. Oh, we've got a nice little wholesome band that you can take back to your ma on a Sunday after mass, and they'll sit down and have tea and crumpets with them. And oh, we've got no. I mean, okay, Ireland, if you want one line from me, here's what you do. You hand 50,000 euros to Robo Cobra Quartet, who are a jazz funk punk rock band who are based in Belfast. And you just say, go out, sons, give us something that is you, and you get to take it to Eurovision. And then sit back and let them do it.
We'll also look that up.
I thought it was a really good angle for Jedward as head of delegation for Ireland.
Well, I was thinking the same. Yeah, John and Edward.
Head of production. Head of song production. Again, let RTE do the TV side of things. The creative side, you know what? I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think that would be very interesting. It would tell a story, and it would certainly engage the Irish public again.
I just want to come back to a point Meg made talking about money and how Portugal did so well on very little money. I think there's one of the interesting things I found from the most popular short clip on my YouTube channel is Mimicat performing in the Lush Lounge. It's small numbers for me, but it's small numbers for other more popular channels, but you know, it's got thousands of views, and all of the Portuguese subscribers or people who use YouTube, they all say Mimicat's great, what a great voice. They were completely behind that. Not one Portuguese person has commented negatively about Mimicat on when we've shown clips of her performing during her time in Liverpool. And it seems to be that the Festival of Cannes show, I almost certainly pronounced that wrongly, but is, I think it was Tobias who said then that I think the Portuguese don't care what they do at Eurovision, provided that what happens at FTC is authentic and what the Portuguese public like. And they will send what they send to Eurovision and not really care. And I think Ireland perhaps need to head down that route, because Ireland, you think about Portugal chose Mimicat and they all went, this is great. Ireland chose Wild Youth and everyone went, oh crap. And
in a way, Finland and Portugal has very different. I mean, we have very similar experiences. We know that we can send a song that we think is very good, that we genuinely like a lot, and no one else will understand what we're doing, what we're about, and nobody will vote for it. But we will, in the end, still think that, okay, nobody voted for this, but we still like this. We still thought this was good. We don't regret our choice. And I think that Ireland has been so used to, and the UK for that matter, and France back in the day, and so on, that people vote for them out of habit. Whatever we send, someone will vote for it. Even if we think it's bad, someone will vote for it. And I think Ireland will just have to realize that they won't get any free points anymore. They should have gotten that memo a long time ago. And you just have to like what you send, basically.
I think it was
buy it, even if it flops.
I also think it calls back to obviously saying about Festival de Cannes. It's the same with San Remo. They were a performance selection show before Eurovision was a thing. So it's a celebration of their music and their culture. So of course the Portuguese and the Italians are going to rally behind their song because it's authentically Italian and authentically Portuguese. Festival de Cannes is going to be completely different from everyone else because the Bardo Portuguese music is completely different, and they use that selection to celebrate that. So I think that's brilliant because it's sending what they want, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's gone well for Portugal now, but there was a long time it didn't, but they kept trying. And it comes back to that point, it's like Ireland just need to do what they want, do what they think will do best for them and their country, and also just take it out of the late show, give it a sound stage where the sound doesn't actually sound like it's being shoehorned through like a tiny Bluetooth speaker, because, and then we're going to another point, but I felt so bad for half those artists, and more so Layla Jane, because the audio mixing was so bad on her song. It sounded awful, and the song in studio is fantastic, but it didn't sound good live. So of course no one's going to vote for this representative because everyone thinks she can't sing, they can't perform. They can, just they've been given a postage note of a soundstage without the proper equipment for it to sound good down a TV camera. None of the 6 sounded as good as they could have done that night, and that's their biggest issue. They're too busy making it an addition to a late show instead of its own standalone performance piece.
So it's interesting because obviously a few people have talked about it's an internal selection, but Elliot, you are one of the few people in the pre-questions to say that you think we should actually go bigger and actually have a national selection with 10 songs and increase the variety. How do you think that would work if we're struggling at the moment? We've heard Faith's unnamed friend and the shortlisting procedure. How would you get 10 good songs?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think it's more the case that they need to put more time and energy into the selection. So if it is like a Finland, and let's use UMK as a direct comparison. They only have 7 songs, but they're 7 high quality songs. Where this year, any of those 7 could have won and been like they sent a good song, because it was the quality was there. They need to put more time and effort into it, and that's what I mean by take it out of the late show. Push this whole exposure thing. Like, if you make the final, you get to perform to, as it was this year, 162 million people. That is the best exposure for an artist you could ever want. Why wouldn't you do that if that's your leading thing? But that's like, it feels like the Euro song is an afterthought. It's like, oh, we'll do it because people want a selection, or oh, it'll be good for them to hear it beforehand. But if you're gonna do it, make it its own 2-hour slot. Don't stick it on the late show where they give you a jar of peanut butter halfway through, which still makes no sense to me. And put the time and effort into it, because if RTE do that, it shows they're taking it seriously. So then the artists will take it seriously, and the public will say it's a snowballing effect. And that's where it comes back to our point. It starts from the top. And also, I just think they're very, it feels like they're very obsessed or very driven on names on the song, the artist name, who they're working with. Because obviously Leslie Roy was like doing a lot of like, oh, I'm working with this person from who did Jedward's staging, all this sort of like, there was a lot of like leading with the staging director, trying to like drum up hype. And I did like the staging and maps, but it was very much, oh, this is what we're doing to sort of generate the hype, instead of like, my song is good, I believe in maps, this is why it's going to do well. It was everything around it.
That's especially weird because Leslie Roy is already a successful recording artist.
Yeah, she's got a fantastic album from 10 years ago. But that's the thing, like she had such a negative experience from it. And I think it comes from RC, like, and say, go back onto Leslie Roy, when they did the live on tape, she refused to release it. And when everyone said, why not? She said, well, I came last in the semi-final. Why am I going to open myself to more criticism? Which I think was very brave and fair of her. But it comes from the start. They seem, the head of delegation seems too focused on artist name, songwriter name, like the whole package around it, and then this. And then also it didn't help that whole thing with the creative director right before Eurovision. And Wildyouth did fantastically that situation. But again, RTE, fact check your people. Now, I know of that redacted person, and I know how problematic he was for years because I've been in the same circles of a ballroom dancer. And the fact he is still on their payroll when he's been like this for at least 3 years baffles me. I'm just going to put that in there. But yeah, I'm surprised RTE, it took that long to realize that situation. It really stunned me. But that shows how lazy they are to it. They don't pay attention.
And it's just going back to Leslie Roy. I mean, I saw a headline recently where it was she's moved to America with a wife, and it was Euro flop or Euro loser. Go,
yeah.
Fuck off. Sorry.
I think
that's the thing.
Is about. Sorry, Faith, carry on.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I remembered, I feel like it was when we were on a space of Alicia Michelle, and we were talking about why the UK's national selection didn't work, and I think it's similar to Ireland in the sense that the quality just isn't good enough to the like with Ireland's national selection, most of the people who enter it are pretty unknown, and the quality of the songs aren't, like, in terms of the staging and production, isn't very good. So it turns maybe potential bigger, more well-known artists off because they feel like they're competing against such a kind of low caliber, which is why we never really had anyone with huge performing experience compete in the UK's national selection, because I think it was a case of, oh, but it's embarrassing to lose against someone who has way less experience than me. And obviously UMK has fixed that in the sense that, like, people for UMK, people were trying to convince me that Robin was going to win because Robin's the bigger name, when in reality Kalia won, and Kalia, no one had heard of him before, or he was the least known, yet all because the songs were of such good quality and the production was of such good quality. Like the lyric videos they released were clearly had a very high budget. There's no reason to feel embarrassed because everyone was kind of on an even playing field, whereas the playing field for Ireland just feels leagues lower than Finland and Sweden.
Here's a little exercise for everybody to think about when we're talking about national selections here. Imagine that we are back in 2019. United Kingdom still has a national final, and we still have Sweet Lies singing in there from Kerry Ann. We still have Holly Tandy. Let's do Holly Tandy there singing Bigger Than Us. But instead of Jordan Clark, we put in Sam Ryder. Okay? And we get to the point where the people have to pick up the phone and vote. And the BBC's "we're not doing any scoring" panel just goes and points to Holly Tandy and go, "That's a perfect Eurovision song. You're the perfect star for Eurovision. I want to see you on stage in Tel Aviv." Who at home is going to vote for Sam Ryder at that point? And I think that, we've all watched reality TV. We all know how this game works. The votes would go to Holly. We would never have had Sam Ryder. And so you for me,
we call that the Barrowman effect, don't we?
Pretty much. That's so Eurovision, yeah. But again, we're redacted names, I feel, there as well.
Sorry.
And that's why I think it's important to make, we could have not had Sam. Yeah. because at that point, the management were very focused on a name, a song, the one written by Laurel Barker, the person was selected on BBC Introducing 4 years ago, or has been in a coffee advert or something. And that blinds them to what they had. It took TAP going, we're doing all the music stuff. You shut up, you do the TV show. We will just give you a look. Here's 2 or 3. Choose the one you like. By the way, can you choose Sam? I'd love to know who was second and third on the list, but
I know. Oh,
but that's where Ireland is. If you have a national final, you have to pick 3 or 4 songs that you feel are going to go forward to the song contest, and you're struggling to find half of one at the moment. And the second one is brutally budget. Eurovision is one of the cheapest weekends of the year for broadcasters who are to the west of the Danube. To replace Eurovision would actually cost more money to buy in more programming than it would to actually put on the song contest. So when people do it costs us so much, to cancel it would actually cost the broadcaster more money. That's not the case, by the way, when we get over to East European countries. They have to make strong decisions about, do we do 3 or 4 outside broadcasts, or do we just do one Eurovision? The Late Show is about the only way they can afford to do a national final right now. And the Late Show's big draw is it is Ireland's biggest program. It is one of the few things that they can offer the artists, which is we can give you the biggest platform on Irish television that there is. To go out and do a national final somewhere else costs about 3 or 4 times what I think it's 3 or 4 times. It's a significant multiplier when I spoke to the head of delegation 2 years ago. Where does that money come from? What does RTE cancel out of their entertainment budget to do a national final where they don't have enough songs coming in? You know, UMK, I don't know what the finances were like up at Wiley, but my understanding of finances at RTE is there are none. It's they have to do Eurovision because it's cheaper. It fills a Saturday night. It's the bottle show, but they don't have enough money to do a selection. But they feel they need to have public input to do a selection, and go and ask other. I mean, look, the BBC. The point of the EBU is to share knowledge around public service broadcasters. There are public service broadcasters like Wiley who've turned it round, who've done internal selections like the BBC and turned it round, who've done very small national finals and done incredibly well out of it. Moldova every single year. RTE have all them in the address book. They're all in the same WhatsApp group for heads of delegation. It should be, guys, can I take you all out for a Guinness? Come over here. We'll do some crack. You can tell me what you do, which is what Tobias did earlier in far fewer words.
What I would say about sort of national finals that aren't taking place in tiny bereft studios is that they sell out. I mean, look at Danske Melody Grand Prix. The quality of song was not that good, but that arena was heaving. You know, I don't think they sold out. I mean, Melody Fest obviously sells out. I'm assuming, you know, I was in the 2016. I went to the 2016 UK final, and again, the theatre or the arena, it wasn't an arena, but the place where it was held was sold out, and that was people paying. It was 30 quid a ticket for a 6-song national final where you didn't know any of the artists, and people were willing to pay. Idiots like me.
I did.
So
I was there. I went because I thought, why not?
Yeah, 30 quid, but it's like half a coffee in Starbucks nowadays.
Yeah,
it's a night in London, sure.
But what I will say about that very first final in 2016 for the UK was that, yeah, the artists weren't that well known and the songs probably not that great. But actually, I think the diversity of, so you know, the idea that you would open the national final of a country music song or with Dulcimer was just like unheard of. And obviously, we went for Joe and Jake and ignored all the sort of. And
Dulcimer went on to get voice tracking on a couple of the American teen soap CW channels. So they actually did quite well out of it. They played C2C 11 months after that, the big country-to-country connections in the O2, and then they broke up as a band.
Yeah.
But that success should have been taken by the BBC. The BBC should have been putting them forward to do stuff. Everybody goes into a national final, comes back to make it worth their while.
Yeah. I think if you're going to do an Irish final, you've got to. I'm afraid my geography of Irish arenas is poor, but you would have to tell them, look, we're going to sell out an arena, and you will perform to X thousand people, and make it worth your while. But I'm just not sure they're there yet to be convinced.
Not
I
for
would
the
like
Mill
to-
Street.
Yeah, sorry. I would like to make the point that actually making a national final in a TV studio is not necessarily a bad thing. If you don't have a really good venue, or you can't sell it out, or interest isn't just good enough or isn't big enough, then it is, I think, better to put on a national final in a really nice TV studio with excellent sound and excellent production values. There are countries that do this really, really well. And I think that's a good way of doing it. I think what Ireland needs to get their head around as well is that anyone who's been involved in a national final knows that you can't just open up for people to send in entries and then you listen to and you pick the best ones, because that will never work. Never, ever in a million years. You need to go fishing. You need to invite people. You need to engage with singers, songwriters, producers, record labels, and convince them that this platform that we offer you is really good for you. This is what you actually need. And if you fail with that, if you fail to sell that idea to them, you won't get good enough songs. You will have a horrible national final that nobody wants to watch and that nobody wants to be seen in. So no matter if you do it in an arena or if you do it in a TV studio, you need to work on your connections and you need to get people on board, because otherwise, whatever you do, you will end up with poor quality selection.
Will, you look like you had something to say.
I was just thinking of, the idea of the arenas. I think that, that probably won't work in the next few years, but it might be something they could build to. I think first off, they're just going to have to, look at what they're doing and figure out, how can we do this better? How can we do this like others are doing? Or how can we do it in our way that is not trying to be what they have been doing? And then maybe they could work along. There are some venues in Dublin, but there aren't that many arenas in Ireland. It's still very small in terms of the infrastructure. And the biggest one is still the one that was the Point. It's now called the Three Arena, which is on the banks of the Liffey in Dublin.
Right. Well, we've gone for well over an hour on this. So I suppose, has anyone got any final thoughts? How do Ireland move forward? What do they do? Or go on.
I'll go. So me and my friend were talking about this actually. It kind of like an in-between. If Ireland don't want to fully go internal, an idea that I think it was mainly their idea, but we were both kind of like, oh my god, this is such a good idea. Just find other management, like potentially grab people from overseas who are veterans at this and help them choose maybe 3 or 4 very quality acts and film a music video, maybe in a studio, like how they would want it to be staged, and then get a vote. But the 4 that they have are very well produced and very high quality, and just like that. So kind of like an internal selection, but then because so that the blame doesn't fall completely on them, just get the audience to vote, so the public feel like they have a say in it, but the quality is very, very strong, if that makes sense, and not on Euro.
Like a closed doors national final.
Yeah,
Greece did that, didn't they?
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, Greece did that this year.
Yeah.
That worked well.
Trial and error.
I think it was an anomaly, because they normally are very good at selecting. So
Maybe some years they just have bills to pay.
I honestly think Sweden winning this year was the best thing to happen to Ireland, because it's going to drag them out of the past. Because as we kept saying, like everyone says about Ireland, they are stuck in the past. Oh, we're the most successful nation. Yeah, your last win was 30 years ago. You need to move into the modern day. And now there is that tie, and there's that real legitimate threat of Sweden overtaking them. Luxembourg have come back. We don't know how they're going to come back and perform. They could hit the ground running again. There's a real threat that they're just going to go into just the sea of 30 or 38 other countries. They need to stop living in the past and go, we need a complete reshape. We need to work hard. We need to sort this out. And I know money is tight and that is a massive roadblock for all broadcasters, but they need to take this seriously. And I think they need to acknowledge that the Irish fans take it seriously. So it's almost as like, it almost like they owe the fans more, because the Irish fans are some of the most dedicated fans I've ever met and heard in my entire life. It is amazing. And I don't want to say I feel sorry for them, but at the same time, it's just like, I want you to do well, because you put so much effort and investment into your entry every single year, more than your broadcaster does. So I feel like they need to be told, stop living in the past, invite, Stig Karlsson or Chris Bjorkman over to have a stern chat and listen through these songs or whatever they need to do, and just start again, because there is potential there. There's potential in every country, and you just need one good song and one good singer to revitalize a nation. It happened with Sam with us. It can happen again. But I think this win will hopefully bring them into the modern age, because their record is tied and now severely under threat by a multitude of countries.
I mean, technically, I wouldn't say even they're tied, because Ireland have done fewer Eurovisions than Sweden, and they've qualified for the final less times than Sweden. So Sweden have overtaken them, if you don't just include just the wins.
I think
Go on.
I think Ireland has two choices. One of them, which I am very afraid they might do, is that they go for an internal selection. They choose Johnny Logan, and he comes out singing a ballad in an exploding cake.
It'll be hilarious. Do it, please, please, please.
The content writes itself.
It would be great. He's only won it twice. Linda Martin won the third time. And I will defend that even in front of Niamh Cabot in my dying days. Here's what I would suggest to Ireland. Ignore the fans. You've got us. Okay, we're going to follow you. Okay, ignore everything we say about the contest. Ignore what we say about choosing a song or an artist or performance. Put all of your focus on Ireland. And by that I mean, whoever you select, you make sure that they feel like Ireland, that Ireland, the country, supports them, that the artists feel that they're representing Ireland. Success should be winning the national final, appearing in the national final, getting recognized on television. Make the music a success in Ireland. You've got a one-night national final, great, but you've got 5 acts. So for the 5 weeks before that, you give them the late show. You give them a 3-song performance on the late show with an EP release on digital and a full interview. You make it last 6 weeks. You give them this massive stage over multiple nights, and you make it a success for Ireland. You start to talk to the public. You do the documentaries. You play more Eurovision music, not just Ireland, on your radio stations. You start talking about it in January, February, March, and you show the breadth of color. And to be fair, it's a public service broadcaster. It's part of your remit as well to bring in different styles of music so that people go, this is Eurovision. This is modern Eurovision. You can see the BBC starting to do that, by the way, when you look back at those national finals in 2019, with Scott's VTs going, Eurovision's changed now. The mood was in the air. They need to do that. And they need to start pulling the strings in the dark, shadowy corners of press-broadcaster relations. And we will leave it at that. But you need to work those angles with the press. You need to let the public know what Eurovision is now. And you need to let every artist who enters feel that they will be a success no matter what happens. That
Easy
is
as that.
how you create a successful song, and then you do exactly the same again at Eurovision. And if they come last in the semi-final, you know what? They've had all that success in Ireland. You bring them back, you put them on the Late Show again, you put them in your summer specials, you put them in the New Year's Day concert, not the New Year's Day, that's the one from Vienna. You put them in your All Year's Night concert, you support them for the entire year. Because then when you come around again, you'll have 5 new artists who go, RT will support me throughout the year because I submit to Eurosong. That's how you find your artist support, your media support, your public support, and your press support. It'll take you 3 years. But remember, don't listen to us fans. Listen to everybody else.
Simple. Faith, did you have something you want to say? Oh, sorry. I think I heard Faith
Yeah,
first.
no, I was just gonna. Oh,
Yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say that I think everyone hoped that Ireland would do that this year, where people were saying, oh, well, the UK were kind of in the same position where they just weren't getting the results. And now we finally got a good result. So I think everyone was kind of hoping that they would follow in their footsteps because we are such close neighbours. But they just didn't. And so we are saying this, and like we hope that maybe they'll follow from Loreen. But I'm still doubtful because we said this about Sam, and they just I feel like there was a little glimmer of hope, but then when we saw Eurosong itself, it just it's clear that they hadn't learned anything. So I think I am still a bit doubtful. I'm obviously hoping that they do really well and they do take a completely different approach, but these sorts of things they've been doing over the last however many years, it takes a lot of unlearning. And I think some people, maybe part of management, they just don't like the idea of change, or they're scared of change, because then if that doesn't work, then that can come back and bite them in the arse as well.
I was just thinking the same thing as you, Faith. I think it all comes down to, I think there needs to be a shake-up now with the delegation, because something's just not clicking, and the people that are involved in organising this, clearly, I think they've had a few chances now. They're just not, they don't have the vision for a modern contest. I think there just needs to be a major rebuilding exercise in Ireland now from the bottom up. And I think it starts at the centre with the people that are bringing in the ideas. They need new people involved now.
Is Team Jedward.
Bring them in, it's time.
Yeah.
It's their moment.
They need to stop interviewing Dana every year, who then just sits there and goes, oh, can we get Johnny Logan to just stop it? like because that's what I saw in the media was Dana. The first thing they did was ask Dana what she thinks. And like, who gives a
How often would BBC bring out Carol Baker?
no one sat there asking Mary Hopkin what we should do. Like,
Is she still alive?
Bill Carr, who should we send?
Tobias, did you have something to say? I think. Or...
No, I was just reacting to the idea that it's that simple. It's never that simple, you know. That's also part of the game. You can do everything right and still fall on your nose, because that's the way it goes. But what Meg said, all of that can be applied to Ireland, but it could also be applied to Germany. Are exactly in the same position where Ireland is, only they won't flunk in the semi-final, they will end last in the final instead. You know, when you have a team that doesn't have a vision, that doesn't have any idea what this show they're working on does, or how it works, or what is required of you, then you need to change the team. You know, just shake it up, give it to someone else, say, thank you, buy everyone flowers, but we won't be needing your services anymore. Let's get someone else to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which reminded me, I had a small argument with the head of the German delegation during Eurovision week.
I bet that was not pretty.
It was, she's a...
So you're brave.
You're just going to leave that hanging there?
Go and spill the tea.
Right,
Spill the tea, darling.
Right,
if you're going to leave that hanging there, I have a fun German head of delegation story as well. So you do yours first and I'll do mine.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. It was just sort of, I was asked to help at the one of the OGA meet and greets at the Camp in Furness on the Friday. And the job I'd been given was just, there was a list of press who were going to turn up, and my job was just to tick them off as they came in. And then this head of German delegation sort of just shouted, "I'm not on your list!" And then I was sort of a bit like, I don't know what to do, and panicked and sort of ran to get a grown up, basically. But then Lord of the Lost did photos afterwards, and I was just about to get a photo, and then she said, "No, that's enough time now," and moved them on. And I think that was personal. So.
Oh, mine's is slightly more embarrassing, but not as politically fun. This was after Anne-Sophie and won the interesting national final with Black Smoke. And for those of you who'd like to find Coitus Interruptus in German television, I believe the clip is still up on YouTube. with the mic drop from the person who won. But I bumped into the head of delegation probably 2 weeks later at the big Eurovision thing down 50th or the 60th anniversary concert. And I asked them when they changed the tempo in Black Smoke. Because I'd obviously, went to YouTube and got a copy of the MP3, as we all do. But something had went wrong with my encoding. So I actually had a version that had been sped up and tempo shifted, but not pitch shifted. So I'd be listening to Black Smoke when it was 2 minutes 33 seconds long and not 2 minutes 58 seconds long. And I'm like, when did you speed it up? And he's like, we haven't speeded it up. Oh, it's really good speeded up. It's better than the original. No, we haven't speeded it up. Oh, you should speed it up. It's better. And walked away, backing up very, very slowly.
Right. Well, we started positively. We talked negatively for an hour, and we ended on shame and embarrassment, and that's where we will end tonight. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's taken part tonight. I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have. And I'm terrible at goodbyes, so yeah, we'll say hopefully we'll do another one of these soon. And very much for taking part, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
It's great fun.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.